This is Kirk Hilliard with the Kirk and Bird Show. You may see Rusty Bird's not here. It's spring break. He's taking some time off down in sunny Puerto Rico. Jay Golson, our man, voice of Freedom Woodbridge football and Colgan baseball, is here, and we
sometimes.
What's that?
Sometimes Colgan baseball.
Yeah, we've got Virginia Tech coach John Szefc, the Hammer and Hokies, as a guest today. We're excited. He's in between series. Coach, you just wrapped up a good series win against a top 10
UVA
and UVA, and you're headed down to Durham to play the Duke Blue Devils. Coach, how's it going this season? How's everything in Blacksburg?
Good. Things are good here, and trying to make progress as we go through our season, keep our guys healthy, and can't complain. It's good.
Yeah. Looking at the Hokies, you're coming off obviously an incredible year. Hokie Nation was very excited. I was watching on television, almost made it to Omaha. Now this year, you're really starting to catch your stride. Big victory over UVA in the series weekend, and you're competing. You're competing. Jay and I were just talking. The ACC is a power conference. I mean, you've got Wake and you've got UVA in the top 10. You've got North Carolina. You've got Boston College. And then, some of the traditional powers, Clemson, Florida State, they're there also. But catch us up with where you are on the season and how the Hammer and Hokies are doing.
I mean, we started our non-conference in a pretty good place, and I think as we came into ACC play, we were playing. We ended up playing two really tough foes right out of the gate. With BC and then at Miami. Miami's always really good. And we didn't really get the results that we were looking for in conference play right away. We played some pretty close games. And so, numbers wise, we probably were not in the best place coming out of the first 3 weekends. We hadn't played great. We hadn't played bad. We're somewhere in the middle. And, this past weekend, specifically Saturday, Sunday, I think, we kind of started to get some contributions from some guys that some really solid contributions from some of our older players that we needed with experience, and it kind of, I think, paid off in the outcome. And we feel like we're in a pretty good place at this point in the game going into Duke this weekend. You don't really ever know how games are going to go in this league because it is so razor thin as far as the margin for victory here in this league. But, you just try to have as many of your guys as possible in good health. And you create the best matchups you can, put the group out there and play as hard as you can and hope for the best outcome that you can get.
Hey, Coach, right. This year, are you a lot younger than last year? Because last year, I had 3 pitchers go on the draft last season, I guess. So is there a youth movement going on between this year versus last year?
Well, we're definitely a lot younger for sure. I mean, on Saturday, Sunday, we had 3 freshmen in the lineup, which is, this is a hard league for freshmen to be productive in, just from an experience perspective. But, the 3 guys that played in those games are all very good players. I think not just now, but certainly in the future. I wouldn't call it like a youth movement. I would just say that, in college sports, your roster's usually not going to be the same year to year. It's going to change. In our case, it might be a combination of freshmen or grad transfers or transfers in general, which we do have some grad transfers and some transfers in our lineup, depending on what day you see us play. But so do other people, and rarely are you ever going to have the same team, if ever, year after year. So, we're just trying to create the best matchups that we can, figure out what lineups are best at this point. Even, we're 20 plus games into the season, but you're always dealing with injuries and some guys are hot, some guys are not. And you're just trying to put the best guys out there that you can, given the matchup in the day.
The one guy who's really hot was Jack Curley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like five home runs last week. during the week, 5 different home runs. Wow.
Yeah,
Is he a junior or?
He's a junior. I mean, but this is his draft year, so Jackal. He's starting to kind of hit his stride a little bit. He kind of scuffled out of the gate, but by his standards, I think. And but baseball is a tough game in this league, and it's a long season, and you're going to have some ups and downs. And usually, the guys that can have the most success in this league are guys that can deal with the failure of the game and the success of the game, and not get too high or too low. And I think he's seeing that. He's got a lot of experience under his belt. He's been in the lineup every day. Now this is his 3rd year. So
Okay.
He's probably one of our most experienced guys as far as gameplay and the amount of at-bats he's had. And I mean, if any team is going to be very good, their best players have got to play best.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of sounds like a cliche, but it's true. And I mean, Jack's certainly one of our best players among other guys. And, like in our case, it's going to be a combination of guys like Hurley playing at his best and some of our first-year guys playing at their best. And I think the more they play, the better they get, just like in any other sport. And I mean, we have a lot of other contributors too, not just those guys, but, we're far from a finished product. We're definite work in progress. And, when are we going to hit our peak? I don't know, but we haven't yet. Not even close. I think so.
Yeah. Now, how would you kind of categorize your pitching so far this year?
Well, we've been kind of up and down there. Like if I go back to the Pittsburgh weekend, we're down 4 bullpen arms. That really kind of was difficult to get through that. We had a couple guys that were banged up. We got really good starts in that week, and we just didn't finish a couple games there. Lost 2 1-run games. We have the majority of those guys that were kind of coming off of minor injuries back. Weicker was one, Higgins was another. So we feel like we're in a better shape at the back end right now. This past weekend, we probably didn't get the starts that we got in the Pittsburgh weekend, but the opposition this weekend, the Virginia team we played, was a very good team too. So credit them.
Oh yeah,
they're a harder lineup to pitch against. So, we've been a little bit up and down, but I think our guys again. I kind of go back to experience a lot with players, whether they're position players, whether they're pitchers, and I do feel like as long as the guy is healthy and he has a fair amount of experience, which the majority of our pitching staff has, that at the end of it, that they're going to come out on the high side, and I'll always think that. So,
yeah, Coach. One of the things that
I'm curious though, for
go
ahead.
We don't space that down there. I was just going to point out that being around Virginia Tech for the better part of like 35 to 40 years, I've noticed a large pickup for high round Major League Baseball draft picks. Back in like the 80s and 90s, I remember, a number of guys. Joe Saunders was one that made the bigs, but now there are guys in the program that are going very high. I wanted to ask you, is that a recruiting tool when you're able to bring people with that 3-year commitment to Blacksburg and you're able to show them, hey, this is a great path to Major League Baseball or pro baseball?
No, I think it is. And like last year, we had 4 guys in the top 5 rounds that were taken.
Wow.
And only one of those guys was drafted out of high school. The other 3 guys weren't even picked out of high school. So that's, in addition to the elite level picks, I think another big part of the recruiting thing, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that I do think like we're developing guys here from being really good high school players to being high level pro guys. And last year was evidenced by Cross, Schobel, Biddison. All 3 of those guys weren't drafted out of high school. They were all drafted in the top 4 rounds last year. But it takes a little bit of time. I mean, like you have to be patient with your development and what you learn at the college level. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of patience in society nowadays. Everybody wants to have immediate feedback.
Right.
And the more people can be patient with their development and be patient in our game, the more they're gonna end up seeing the byproducts of it over time. And I, we talk to our players a lot about that. And I think parents' patience, families' patience factor into that. But, nowadays you have kids, they're committing as freshmen, sophomores in high school. And sometimes kids will get all banged up if they're not getting a ton of action when they're a freshman or sophomore in high school, when typically guys are usually going to be at their best later on in their high school careers. But that's not how a lot of people don't see it that way. So I can just give it to you from my perspective and over 30 years seeing it, but yeah, I mean, we put a lot of, we put a big onus on our player development here and working with guys and coaching guys, and not just on the field, but what they're doing off the field and the mental side of things. And, usually if you have guys that are good enough players that have strong enough personalities, they will get dramatically better over the course of their time here, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 years or whatever it ends up being.
Right. Hey, Coach, also, speaking of recruiting, now I do mostly football, in recruiting, watching the recruits from colleges. In baseball, do you visit high schools? Do you look for like certain intangibles of a kid, like eye candy or their baseball coach, or what goes on in baseball recruiting for a school like Virginia Tech?
Oh, I mean, it's pretty open can right there. There's a lot that goes on. I mean, we'll recruit guys out of high schools and summer programs, and just depends on the fit, and kind of our needs. We put an awfully big onus on Virginia players. Not that our whole roster is Virginia players, because it's not. But, obviously being Virginia Tech, we feel like we have to really put an awful lot of emphasis within the guys within our state, because Virginia is a very good baseball state. Mm-hmm. High school players and for transfer players actually as well. But, we're trying to find guys that can step in and make an immediate impact in the ACC. And there's a lot of good players out there, but it's kind of a fine line as far as how quickly they can make an impact in this league.
Yeah.
A lot depends on their physical ability and their mental capabilities. How much is their upside, or how quickly are they going to hit their plateau? Everybody hits it. It's just a matter of when you hit it. So it's really not a one size fits all kind of thing. It just depends. It's a case by case thing as far as the player, where he's coming from, the level he's coming from, and kind of how it fits into maybe the needs that we have and who we're losing in our program.
Coach,
so facility wise, one second, Kirk, one question. Facility wise, you can compete with the Arizona States, the USCs, the Miamis. Do you feel like, is that something, are you on the same page, or do you step back if the kid tells you, well, Coach, I'm considering Arizona State or Miami? Or do you still go after them because they're better now than what it was 20 years ago at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, it just kind of depends on who the kid is, where he's from. I mean, a program like the two you mentioned, that's great. Like, it sounds really good. But, if you're from the East Coast, for instance, and you want to stay maybe a little closer to home and play in a frontline league like the ACC, where your family can watch you and not have to get on a plane to go see you. Some guys might not want to get on a plane to fly to California or Arizona.
Yeah.
College. Right. They might not want to do that. They might want to, get in the car and drive to wherever they're going.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying we get all of our guys from close by. It just depends. We have a handful of guys that are from out West, and they're really good players, and they're a really big part of what we have going on. And then we have some of our other players that are from Virginia and Pennsylvania. Cade Hunter last year, top, 5th round catcher, was from New Jersey. So, man, it really doesn't matter where a guy's from. It just matters for me how good he is, how good his makeup is, and how well he fits. We're just fortunate enough, I think, that we're in a pretty good baseball area where there's a lot of really good players, probably within maybe a 3 to 5 hour radius of our campus. But we probably end up seeing a little bit more of those guys just because of the easiness to get to see them, or maybe the relationships that we have with coaches or people that they know. but it doesn't always happen that way. One of our best players, Jonah Hurney's from Hawaii, so
Whoa,
figure that one out. You know what I mean?
You're a good salesman.
Well, when he goes home, he's it's a 6-hour time difference.
Yeah.
But that's one case. Again, we kind of just take it case by case.
Absolutely.
Coach, Jay brought up, facilities, and in all sports, those are big. And one of the things, North Carolina and Chapel Hill, they redid their baseball facilities and they're spectacular. But Virginia Tech with English Field, Union Bank Stadium, that has come a long way. You've got a
nice
facility. You've got a great facility to sell to recruits, which is a big one. I just wanted you to comment on that and get your overall take on Virginia Tech's commitment to facilities in baseball, Coach.
Yeah, well, I think the plan to redo the facility here was put into place before I ever got here.
Right.
Our athletic director, Whit Babcock, and John Boleyn, I think, put that in place. And I think it's worked out probably pretty close to what they had hoped. The ballpark is a frontline park. It's a very good college ballpark. You can watch the game on the left field side in a lawn chair or a blanket, behind home plate, a chair back, up top in a suite, on the right side in a picnic table or a high top. So you can watch it a lot of different ways depending on how you want to watch it. And so it's very unique in that respect. From a player perspective, what they did and what they planned and had happened in the Weaver complex, which is down our left field line, as far as cages, the clubhouse facility, a video room, it's all very up to date with what we need in this day and age in the ACC. We just opened a pitching facility beyond our left field fence. That was about a $2 million project, which came out of a donation. So, it's all good, man. I have no complaints. We're in talks and plans right now to redo all of our turf, because it's getting older. And that's going to happen probably in the off season. So, between the new turf, the new ballpark, the pitching facility, we've added a lot of analytical and technology, both in Weaver and in the pitching facility. So, I feel like we are right there with anybody else in this league. It just depends on what you're looking for, and it depends on what you think is top of the line. But, there's a lot of good facilities in our league. You go campus to campus, and I don't think anything is going to disappoint you. It's just a matter of what you think is best.
Right.
I will say, though, that our stuff, what we have here, is new. It's all within 3 years old, 3 to 4 years old ish. So usually new looks better.
Yes.
It usually does, whether it's a new car, whether it's a new house, whether it's a new bike, whatever. So I do feel like our stuff, as good as it is even probably more, maybe more appealing to the eye, because it's new and it's clean, and it's not overrun or beat up or anything like that. So
I wanted to ask you, with Virginia Tech, and Whit Babcock has just made some incredible hires in athletics. And do you think a high tide raises all boats? Because you've got the women went to the Final Four, highest audience ever in Final Four history. You've got softball was incredible last year. Women's soccer, men's basketball has become much more popular for a very football-centric school. And of course, football gets a lot of attention. But some of these newer successes of the programs, do they help you with that brand and going out there and talking to kids from Massachusetts down to Florida?
Yeah, I think so, because the majority of our sports are all on TV at some point or another. They're easy to see because of their success rate. And then when a kid actually gets here and sees what's here for them, not just within their sport, but like, for instance, we have a new nutrition center that opened for about $20 million, where all the athletes in there eat in there.
Yep.
Weight training facilities are frontline. So
wow.
I don't think that any young person coming to school here, whether it's a male or female athlete, really has to sacrifice a whole lot. Not to mention the fact that academically the place is is very good. I mean, depending on what major you're interested in. So, yeah, this is not the kind of place that you have, when you bring a kid in for a visit, you have to say, okay, I want to keep him away from this. We got to make sure we don't see that. Like, it's an open door. You can see whatever you want to see. Like, we have nothing to hide. Everything is very accessible and appealing, I think, to a young kid and their parents, or a transfer and his family. So I feel like the place kind of almost sells itself. But then obviously, we have got our own plan, is depending on the kid, position, year, as far as how they fit and going through that process with them.
Yeah. Now, Coach, we want to spend the last part of this episode kind of profiling you, getting to know you more. You're about our age. We're all in our mid-50s. But before that, I want to ask you a couple of questions on recruiting. And like I explained before we started the episode, we really concentrate on high school. So we've got Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia. A lot of kids follow us. So what is your thoughts on early commitments? Because, I just saw that, I think an 8th grader was at Alabama spring football game. And I know Virginia Tech has had some publicized really early commitments. What's your take on, kids committing to college programs in, right now it's the 8th and 9th grade, What's your take on that? Is it one of those things where you need to get them because of the style or the culture of transferring?
Yeah, I think it depends on the kid, depends on the situation. The majority of 8th and 9th graders, probably I'll start with 8th graders, or even going into their freshman year of high school, a lot of those guys are not quite along enough physically to probably profile as an ACC athlete. That doesn't mean that they won't be. All that means is maybe as an 8th or 9th grader that they're not ready for it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for probably the 3 to 5% of kids that are advanced, that are ready for that, then, from my perspective, it just depends on if a guy is ready to get into that in his family. The way we look at it is, if a kid is ready, like if we can look at a kid as a 9th grader and say, if he was a senior in high school, would we recruit him? If he's that good, then we'll recruit him, then we'll get involved with it. And if the answer to that question is no, then we won't. Maybe we'll put him on a back burner a little bit and obviously follow him and watch his progress. And maybe we end up recruiting him a year down the road or 2 years down the road. But it's really not a one size, again, fits all answer to that question. It just depends on how advanced the guy is, how much he wants to get involved in the recruiting process as a very young person. And then obviously, what are his family's thoughts? Like if his family don't want to get involved with that at that age, and then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, It's the same thing as saying, okay, for me, is a kid going to want to sign out of high school as an elite level baseball player, or does he want to go to college for 3 years? Some guys and their families think that they're ready for that out of high school, to be a professional athlete 2 weeks after their high school graduation. Yeah. Others don't feel that way. Others feel like they need the experience of playing college baseball and getting seasoned on and off the field. So again, I think in that case, it's not a one size fits all there either. I don't personally think that any 18-year-old kid should be ready to become a professional athlete 2 weeks after a high school graduation, regardless of their talent level. But sometimes the size of the check says they are.
Yeah.
And so they become, but I don't think that they're ready for that. I think that any kid that participates in 2 or 3 years of college baseball, if they're that good, they're going to be in a really, really good place. Come their sophomore, if they're draft eligible sophomore, like Tanner Schobel was last year for us, or by their junior year, like Jack Hurley would be this year, and Gavin Cross was last year. So again, it depends on the guy and his family, where he's at in the process. I know a lot of people don't agree with the early recruiting part of it. I can't, I look at it, I don't look at it from a perspective of I agree or disagree. I look at it from the perspective of it's one athlete at a time. If that athlete is advanced and good enough and he and his family want to pursue it, then we'll pursue it. If they don't, then we won't. Then we'll wait on it. And that's kind of how we go about it.
Yeah. Jay, you have a
But
question?
you also attend school games?
I'm sorry?
You attend many high school games to recruit?
Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, it just depends on, again, age, like a grade of the player, his interest level in Virginia. Like, we're not going to go to watch a guy play a high school game if he doesn't have an interest in us.
Okay.
It's got to be the right fit. It's got to be a guy that we feel like maybe we've seen him before. Maybe he's come to our camp. Maybe we have a relationship with his coaching staff, and they're saying, "Hey, you need to come watch this guy. Like, he's a guy."
Yeah.
Like Mike.
A lot of it depends on his age and his grade. Is he a 23? Is he a senior, for instance, or is he a 26, a freshman? You're going to evaluate like that far differently.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach. Now it's funny because we announced that we were going to be interviewing you, and we had some folks that wanted us to ask you about some commitments, which you cannot comment on because of NCAA rules. However, I've met some of your kids that are on their roster now. So we've got a lot of Prince William County Colgan Sharks fans. Can you tell us a little bit about Carter Newman and Ryan Kennedy, two great kids that are freshmen for you?
Yeah. I'd start with Ryan. So Ryan had a really good preseason for us, and he's dealing with a little bit of tenderness in the back part of his elbow right now. He hadn't pitched this spring for us. It's not because, like, going into the season, he was probably our fourth starter, actually.
Wow.
And we've been trying to get him right medically. Like, we need him to come back and pitch, trust me, sooner than later. But, like, I will not put a guy in the field or on the mound if they're not at or around 100%, because I don't think it's fair to them. I don't think it's fair to our team either, because, to press a guy back like that, especially a young kid like that, he's got to be, right physically and mentally to go out there. But I think Brian will be a really good, really high level guy. He was really up until his very last outing before we opened the season at the College of Charleston. And he had some kind of inflammation and tenderness in the back of his elbow, not where ECL is. But he's working hard in his rehab to kind of get back. So we look forward to that. And I think in Carter's case, and he's a pretty frontline infielder coming in, he's kind of had some ups and downs. I think he's trying to get himself physically stronger in order to be an everyday player in the ACC. He hasn't had a lot of run yet. I think that could be coming, though. He's also spent some time in the outfield, and he's a good athlete. I mean, he can move. Like, he can probably play different outfield positions and play different infield positions. So he's a really interesting guy, because I think as he gets bigger, faster, stronger, he'll be a fine college baseball player. As I said, sometimes guys arrive sooner than others, and I think he's, maybe to put an analogy, I think he's in the neighborhood, he's driving around the neighborhood, he just hasn't quite reached the house yet. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but he's gonna be a really good player.
Yeah, and then you've got, one other kid we want to ask about. That's Griffin Steed from McLean. Just catch us up on that, because we got a lot of viewers from up here.
Yeah, I mean, Griff, he's had a good freshman year thus far. We've used him, obviously out of the bullpen, and he's probably one of our top arms out of that pen, regardless of his age. I mean, his ability is pretty advanced, and physically, and I think mentally too. He's really like, we pitched him in some tight situations, and I think we'll continue to do that in the near future. And I think in the distant future, he'd be one of our best players, honestly. We're glad that he chose to, going back to what I said before, I think he's one of those guys, he probably could have signed out of high school as a pro if he wanted to. Mm-hmm. But I think he valued the education in the college baseball process. And I think after his time here, I think he will play the game for a while. He'll have the ability to play the game and make a living off the game for a little while. Hard to say how long or what level, but I think he'll be a very advanced pro guy at some stage of the game. Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting. So at this point, we want to just transfer over, have a little bit of fun, and talk about you. So you're from Goshen, New York, and I had to look it up, but I know where it is. Your class of 1985.
Yep.
For all you younger people, that's the year Back to the Future came out, and Villanova upset Georgetown, our glory years. But so, Coach, Goshen is just west of like Newburgh, not that far west of. So you're like southeastern New York, and then tell us about growing up in that part of the country. For those folks that don't know New York, outside of White Plains is upstate, but Coach is from upstate near Newburgh. That's south of Albany. But talk about growing up in Goshen at that time, and then transition that into your college career, where you started at UConn and then finished at Drexel in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I think a lot of people outside of New York think that New York is like New York City.
No.
Drive from the tip of Montauk on Long Island out to Buffalo. Well, you could be in a car for the whole day. I mean, New York's a big state, and it's a different place. Like where I grew up in the Middletown, Goshen area, it's very rural, a lot of country. And I had a great childhood growing up. My father was a newspaper in the newspaper business, worked at the Times Square Record out of Middletown. And my brother, who's younger than me, he's been working at ESPN for over 20 years.
Wow.
So, it's kind of, it's a sports family, I think, I grew up, me and my brother both went to Burke High School in Goshen, and I played 3 sports because, back then it didn't have a football team. There was no fall baseball. I just played whatever sport was in season. I ended up playing goalie on the soccer team. I had a lot of fun doing that. My brother was a 2-sport athlete there. And then, I went to UConn for a while, a couple of years, transferred, graduated from Drexel in Philadelphia, got my master's at Temple, also in Philadelphia. I lived in Philly for 6 years, and started coaching there at Drexel, and then moved on. I was out of the game for about 10 months, worked in New York City, felt like I had to make some money, went to New York there and saw what an absolute, it wasn't for me. I'll just leave it at that, and then got back into coaching. I was at Sacred Heart for a year in '95 when they were a Division II school, and then kind of got a break and got the job at Marist in 1995. It was a part-time job at the time, small Division I school, and had a good run there. And learned an awful lot. You succeed, you make good decisions, bad decisions, and you kind of learn a lot when you're in your late 20s, early 30s. And decided I was going to try to, see a little bit of the college baseball landscapes around the country, and was an assistant at Louisiana Lafayette for 6 years. Went to Kansas for 2, Kansas State for 2 as assistants, and then came back to the East Coast when me and my wife Barbara had our kids, and was lucky enough to get the job at Maryland. Was there for 5 years, and we had some success there before we came down here to Blacksburg. So we've been around a little bit, but I wouldn't trade it. It's been good. My wife's from Pennsylvania, so we have our roots in New York and Pennsylvania,
right
outside of Philly, and she's from the Quakertown area. So we're within a drive in New York and Pennsylvania, and get there as much as we can with our kids. Their grandparents are up there, so it's good, man. Like I can't complain. It's really good.
Yeah. So, Coach, I think Blacksburg is God's country. So I'm a little biased, but I want to ask you about, where you're from, that part of New York, and then, Philadelphia suburbs. A lot of people don't realize you get outside of Philadelphia, you're kind of in the mountains. How are you liking, in your 7th year in Blacksburg, how do you like the New River Valley and the whole culture of that part of Virginia?
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the main reasons why we came here in the first place, was because of the area and the culture here, and it's a really good place to raise kids and have a family, and that was a big reason, I think. And then, obviously getting the opportunity to work for a baseball athletic director in Whit Babcock. I mean, I think he understands the game, and our administration is very committed to it, as evidenced by the facilities here and what they've done for baseball. So for me, it was really a no-brainer back in 2018, and it's 5.5 years later, it's still a no-brainer. Nothing's really changed as far as that goes. There's been a lot that has changed as far as facilities and success and failures and that kind of thing, but it all comes back to people from my perspective, and I really enjoy the staff that I work with here day to day, our coaching staff, and then our administration. It's the same group of people, give or take, that were here when we got here, and I feel like they've had patience with us, and they've treated us very well, and we come to work and do our jobs every day, and nothing changes, man. But that's the way baseball is. It's a 12-month deal as far as building a program and maintaining it, and taking care of the players and the facility, and so that's kind of what I do, what I try to do, but I know my wife and kids, love it here, and I don't know how that would ever change.
Yeah.
Now, your kids school age, or are they athletes, or
3 daughters.
three daughters to play?
You got 3 daughters, right, Coach?
No, my oldest is child, Anna. She's a senior in high school.
Okay.
She's a track athlete and an equestrian athlete. She actually,
Blacksburg?
Yeah, she actually just competed in the national track event, track and field.
Whoa!
She's a pretty high level track athlete. And then I got 2 sons. They're both baseball players. John Michael's a sophomore at Blacksburg. He plays there on the varsity. He played last year on the varsity. My youngest son, Sam, is in 8th grade. Plays 3 sports, and he kind of does what I did. He just plays whatever sports in the season, plays quarterback on the football team, and, is a basketball, baseball player. So everything we do revolves around playing in sports. I don't know that that'll ever change either, to be honest with you. So it's good.
And Blacksburg High, for those that don't know it, for all our Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia, Blacksburg High is a great school. Athletically, it's got some unbelievable programs. I want to say cross country, they've got the most state championships, but they're very good. So now, Coach, on the personal side, so we wanted to just have some fun, get to know you a little bit more personally. So I hope you've got Spotify or Pandora, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
All right. So the game is, if we put you on your shuffle, what's going to come up for your music shuffle?
I listen to a lot of Billy Joel. I'm from New York, and he's from Long Island. I've become a big Billy Joel fan over the years. Seen him in concert a few times, and there'd be an awful lot of Billy Joel. There'd probably be some. I like a lot of country music too. There'll be some Easton Corbin in there. So yeah, probably those 2 guys. That's probably where it would start, I would say.
Yeah. What about your classic 70s, 80s? You got some go-tos there?
Yeah, I kind of oh man, little Van Halen, little Journey, but again, Billy Joel's kind of a 70s, 80s guy too, so I'd probably, I would admit to going to a couple Guns N' Roses concerts back in the 80s and the 90s there. So I'd say I'd probably stick with the Guns N' Roses, Journey, Van Halen-ish. So
yeah, Guns N' Roses, they're touring right now with Carrie Underwood, which is pretty cool, and they're probably making more off this tour than they ever made, like in the 80s and 90s. So
I might go see them. They're in concert up in Hershey in August. I might actually go see them up there.
Hershey's a great place. So typically, our whole thing is quoting from movies. You got any 80s movies you quote from? Because I can tell you, like Top Gun, all the different movies out there, Stripes. What are your go-to with your friends that were at UConn and Drexel and at Goshen in high school?
Well, I've been trying to get some of our players to watch Easy Money from 1983. That's probably one of my favorite movies. Is
Oh yeah, Rodney Dangerfield.
yeah, I'm a big Easy Money. Love watching Fletch.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, everyone would tell you Caddyshack, but I really enjoyed watching. I'm a big Chevy Chase fan from the '80s and the '90s
Yeah.
as far as Fletch, and then Dangerfield was just. I saw him on Broad. He did a short stint on Broadway, stand up on Broadway back in the '90s, and I remember seeing Rodney on Broadway. But like his movies are just, man, I
Yep.
could watch Easy Money all day long. It's just.
I remember that one. Yeah.
You
Now
got
you
an
got-
hour. I tell people you got an hour and a half to spare. Watch it. If you can understand, good humor from Staten Island and New York from the '80s, that's when you want to see. So
Yeah. You got an all-time favorite movie?
probably the three I don't know if one's a favorite. The three I'd throw out there are probably Christmas Vacation,
Oh yeah.
Bull
Yeah.
Durham, and then probably Easy Money. Those three, in some way, shape, or form. I enjoy watching movies that make me laugh.
Yeah.
Not
What about
Yeah.
you, Jay? Jay,
I'll
what's
say-
yours? I've never asked you, Jay, about yours. What are yours? Top 2 or 3 movies.
I would have to say I saw last night Coming to America.
That's
Yeah.
a good one.
88.
Eddie Murphy.
Remember the Titans? No, that's not. That's 2000. No, that's 2000.
That was 01.
Yeah. Now I'm showing my age now. I'm Coach's age too. Saturday Night Fever.
Oh, that was a good one, man.
Yeah.
John Travolta. I watched that several times. That was most of that filmed in New York. Yeah, that's a really great music. I mean, a great soundtrack off of that. I think it's great. But
Yeah. And the last one, it was Tom Cruise. Risky Business.
that's pretty good too. I'd throw one out at you. This is probably not as big, but I really enjoyed watching Eddie Murphy movies back in the day, and he did a movie. He did a movie called Boomerang.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Robin Givens and a lot of people on it.
Soundtrack off of that movie was really, really good. If you
Oh,
like
yeah.
R&B from the '80s, and that was a kind of like an unsung Eddie Murphy movie from the '80s, I think. Boomerang.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we always talk about, well, are you streaming now? I just found out about Succession on HBO, thinking it's new and it's been around for a while. So I've started watching it. But do you have any go-tos, like any of the HBO series, Ozark, anything like that?
Not really. To be, I don't. The only TV I usually watch is like sporting events. Although I will say that during COVID, when we were all kind of stuck in the house, my wife and kids started watching that. It's a kind of a. It's called Heartland. It's filmed in Canada, on a farm. It's a cattle ranch, I want to say, and my wife and kids are into that, so I found myself watching a lot of Heartland.
Right.
Watched a lot of that since, but that's probably the only thing I could say. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of. I can't throw anything else out at you there. Sorry.
So now we always think that like these questions are like, for me, this is like a view into what kind of person you are. So we love talking about food. So you're not from New York City, but wanted to ask you about food. One question, this is a great entree into this, no pun intended. The subject is, what if you could only have one meal for the rest of your life?
Yeah, lobster.
Ooh, lobster.
That's
a good one.
Lobster still do. I don't have it as much as I'd like, but yeah, that would probably be, if I had one, that would be it. Yeah, some kind of lobster meal. Yeah.
So now the options in the New River Valley in Blacksburg, I mean, when I was there, the Christiansburg Mall opened up my second year, but there's some unbelievable. You have a favorite spot or a few spots in Blacksburg or Christiansburg?
Probably, well, the two restaurants that I go to or take recruits to at times, we'll go to Farmhouse. So
Yep.
Christiansburg, we'll go to 622 here in Blacksburg for, Black Hen, three places that are probably higher level dining, if you want to say that. And then, there's a lot of great sports bars, I guess you would call them,
Yep.
PKs and that sort of thing.
Right.
Go to here. So yeah, kind of mix it up a little bit.
Got it. Another thing we have fun with. If you have $5 billion, that's a B, billion. What are some of the things you would do? And we know you're going to start a foundation. We know you're going to take care of some people and do wonderful things, but you could give away 90% of that, coach, and you would still have, I believe, what is it, $50 million or, whatever.
Yeah.
What are some things you would do with that?
You buy the Nationals.
Yeah, I'd probably buy some kind of a sports team, like a baseball team. I mean, I'd see if I buy the Yankees. I don't
know if that would that would not buy the Yankees.
Probably not buy the Yankees. I'd buy something. I'd probably maybe buy the Orioles or something like that. Having lived in Maryland, that's a pretty big fan base. I'd probably try to do something in baseball with it. Buying a baseball team or maybe even an NFL team. My kids are big NFL fans.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
By the way, are you a Yankees fan?
I grew up a Yankees fan. My father, my father was in the newspaper business, and his newspaper had season tickets to the Yankees that they would use to entertain clients, and it was split with a few other people. Well, in a lot of cases, we were the clients. And so I went to, I wouldn't call it the old, there's been 3 Yankee stadiums, as you guys probably know.
Right.
Old Yankee Stadium, the middle Yankee Stadium, and now current Yankee Stadium. So I probably went to the middle Yankee Stadium, maybe 100 times.
Yep.
Growing up. I've seen a lot of games. That was back when you could, tickets were $20.
Right.
Behind a dugout, as opposed to, being $600 now.
Yep.
A lot of really good memories going to Yankee Stadium as a kid. And we went there a lot. We went to Shea here and there, a little bit further from where we were. But my brother was a big Met fan, but I kind of grew up a Yankee fan, I'd say.
Yeah. Didn't Newburgh have a minor league team, and was that associated with the Yankees?
Newburgh had an independent league team. There is however, though, the Hudson Valley Renegades are a high A team for the Yankees right now, actually.
Yeah, that's in Fishkill. So yeah.
Right across the Hudson River from Newburgh, yes.
Right. Okay. All right. And by the way, the Mets were a powerhouse. The reason why I brought this up is I know it so much. Obviously, the 86 Mets beat the Red Sox, but they're a AAA affiliate was the Tidewater Tides. And all those studs came through Norfolk. I mean, Ron Guidry, Dwight Gooden, Darryl Strawberry, Mookie, Keith Hernandez. That was a great Virginia tie. So, well, Coach, thank you so much. We know you're in between series right now between UVA. You're going to be headed down to Durham. We appreciate you taking the time. Before we close, I did want to ask you about your camps. I looked into your camps. You've got a number of camps this summer. Prospect high school players. Real quick for all the coaches and players and parents watching, tell us about your camps and where folks can find information on your camps in Blacksburg.
Well, you can find the info at John Szefc Baseball Camps LLC. I'm sorry, johnszefcbaseballcamps.com.
Okay.
The camps depend. Like, the prospect camps, I mean, a lot of the players in our program have come through, have come to one camp or multiple camps. It gives us an opportunity to, see guys at our own ballpark and see them over the course of 2 days at times.
Right.
We can really probably evaluate them more so than just one quick look. There's prospect camps, there's team camps. So sometimes it'll be like a weekend here where multiple teams will come in. And if he's on a particular team, we'll be able to watch him play on his team. So it just depends on what you're interested in and what your availability is. The prospect camps help us out a lot. We usually have one per month in the summer because it gives us an opportunity again to evaluate kids and get to know them a little bit as well, their personalities, whether it's not just he can throw this hard or hit the ball this far. So, but it's a great tool that we use, and a lot of other college baseball programs use the same thing in order to evaluate players and get to know who they are.
All right.
Wow.
Well, Coach, thank you for taking the time. We know your time's valuable, and best of luck. We're proud of you. You're doing a great job. And, you know,
Coach.
Hokie baseball, I go back to, you know, when the baseball complex was behind Castle Coliseum in Jamerson. That's how far I go back. And Chuck Hartman was there. And it's just come such a long way. And, you know, the alumni base in the high school world, we're watching Virginia Tech baseball so close to getting to Omaha last year. We know you're going to get us there. So thanks again for coming on, Coach.
Thanks for having me. You guys have a good day. All right.
All right. All right. This is Kirk Hilliard, Jay Golson, and Coach John Szefc for the Kirk and Bird Show. We are out.